All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me a touch on the top prop bets for today on both PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's go on and get into it. But first, just a quick recap from yesterday. And the only reason why I'm doing the recap today is because yesterday I led off the video with saying, man, it is crazy. We've had this awesome month of January where we have 70 plus units now won in January, and we hadn't had a single day where we've been able to double dip between PrizePicks and Underdog. Well, of course, yesterday we ended up hitting on both sites. Now, I did give out a flex slip, like a middling opportunity for Underdog. That one ended up going 4 for 5. This was the individual slip that I called out as like the bet of the day bet that'd be worthwhile here. So that ended up hitting, both ended up hitting. You know, the other one was an insured slip. And before I show you guys the PrizePicks slip, just take note of this. Like, this was extremely close, very lucky again to have that hit. And why is that? Well, this wasn't on the bet of the day, but you'll see we did have a decent middling opportunity with that one. You know, a 3-4 prop line difference on any sport is huge. End up being the difference maker between a bad day or good day on Underdog, now 2 days in a row. And then here we go. This was the bet of the day to use with the tacos. So with the tacos going 2 for 3 and this going 3 for 4, very profitable day. I shouldn't say very profitable day. Emmanuel Miller did get into foul trouble in the first half. Did seem like, if you look at his second half production, probably would have got the over had he not gotten into foul trouble. I did think we were going to be a little bit unlucky when Kevin was ruled out right before the game. And then I was like, oh man, Hunter Dickinson's going to get his over now. So, you know, probably a little bit lucky with that one, honestly, but still, correct process, good results. Hopefully we can end January with another good day. So let's go and jump into it. So I do want to start out with some college basketball props that we're getting right now, because we are seeing that we have had some pretty big edges there, and we are getting a decent amount of prop bets for college basketball right now. But we're going to see for PrizePicks right now, really not that many big edges, but once we go into the Underdog sheet, we're going to see a little bit more edges that are there. Typically speaking, Underdog projection wise is a little bit higher, more aggressive. And so looking at, yeah, we are getting some decent projected edges. I mean, kind of crazy with these ones specifically, which I'm going to be running out these first 5 on a bet slip together. I mean, typically speaking, we don't see that big of edge, but that's kind of the common theme with college basketball. It seems to be either Underdog is going to be right today or the sportsbooks are going to be right. Obviously, we're pulling in the average sportsbook line for these odds, and those seem to be some pretty big prop line differences right now, some pretty big projected edges. But I do want to touch on really the prop line differences that we are getting right now, seeing if we have any good middling opportunities on today's slate. And so I would argue that we do. So let's just kind of sort it by the prop line differences here. In terms of maybe gaining an edge on Underdog being a little bit softer in the pricing, we're not gaining that. Typically speaking, we don't. So let's flip it around and see where they might be a little bit aggressive compared to PrizePicks. And then, you know, there's just going to be decent middling opportunities. So I want to start with Joel here. This is crazy. Okay, we're going to see that, yes, the Underdog line probably more correct, because the average sportsbook line would have this at about 35, okay? But they still would be not heavily favored, about 52% likelihood for him to get under 35 for a fantasy collect. So to me, this screams middling. Like, yes, Underdog's line is a little bit too high. PrizePicks line is definitely a little bit too low. Good middling opportunity there. And we have a few. We have 3 right here at least. Okay, 2 for a prop line difference is huge. For example purposes, guys, we hardly ever get that in NBA. And if we do, those lines get corrected pretty much right away. So for me, I will be running out a middling slip with these 3 right here, where on Underdog, yeah, I'm betting the under with those 3. PrizePicks, I'm going to bet the over. Just the middling right now in college basketball has been insane. It's been a good reason as to why we've been so successful in the month of January. And so now let's go ahead and jump on into NBA for the day. And NBA, this is definitely interesting. The best prop bet that's popping up right now is actually Mason Plumlee for over his fans. And I do think that that could be warranted. So I'm looking at the RotoWire lineups here, and you're going to see Zubac is currently listed as, that's great. He's been out for quite some time. And so looking at Mason Plumlee, he is someone that has only been getting around 20 minutes or so. So that's definitely going to be the concern. The nice thing about him is that if you look at the matchups that he's had lately, and I mentioned this because people are going to look at his game log and be like, ooh, that is ugly, right? Don't look at the game. Typically speaking, guys, that's like the worst. It's like the most common mistake I see from people is just making bets based off the game. But looking at it, look at Cleveland, not a good matchup. That's not one you would have wanted to bet him on. Boston, definitely not a matchup you wanted to bet him on for the over. Toronto, yeah, they're a good matchup right now with the trades that they made. Lakers, got to see what happened there. And then Brooklyn, not a team you would have wanted to bet him for the over. And so I do want to take a peek at the Lakers. 19 minutes of that game just did not play well. So a little bit concerning there. Look at OKC, not exactly a tough matchup. Minnesota is a tough matchup. and then Suns, Pelicans. Like, he just hasn't had that many good matchups in quite some time. And so if he is going to get 22, 23 or so minutes against Washington, which is one of the easiest matchups in the league, I can get behind them. Do I necessarily agree with the projection data at 25.5? No, but the average sportsbook line would have this set at 23 points. So at 21.5, yes, we are gaining it. Okay, that's what we're seeing. And we do have two other props that are popping up fantasy score wise. Terrence Mann for under 17 for a fantasy score. We see the average sportsbook line would have this set at 17.3, but they are heavily favoring the under there. And he is someone that his minutes have been a little bit sporadic lately as well. If Paul George is good to go, like it seems like he's not going to be limited at all, I do think we are going to see Terrence Mann's minutes here. I just kind of smiled because I just thought of Paul George. Anyone that's a 9 to 5 member in the Discord chat that was like following along, I think it was on Monday night, where Paul George was a good fantasy score prop. Let me see if I can find the result. It's just, so here we go, just real quickly. Like, he was one of the best over fantasy score prop bets on Monday. It was got 30.5. And what's funny about it is he like did not shoot the basketball well, fouled out, and so it was just only 27 minutes as well. And what's funny about like the whole like question was, will he get the minutes? It was a good matchup for him. Very low fantasy score for him as well. It was just funny that he ended up just tying that. He basically did everything in his power not to hit that prop bet, even though it seemed like it should be a free square. But yeah, with that being said, the point that I was trying to make is that if Paul George is really not going to have his minutes limited too much, or restricted, I should say, man, not getting 20, 25 minutes, that seems more likely. And if that occurs, then yeah, sure, him getting under fantasy score is more likely. Russell Westbrook has been someone that's been playing better. And then the other fantasy score prop that we're seeing is currently popping up is going to be Nick Claxton for under 37 for a fantasy score. And this one's being heavily favored for the under. Again, the projection data likes that 36. The average sportsbook line would have this set at 38, but they are saying, man, at 38 for an average fantasy score line, it's a 55% likelihood for the under to hit. And so for Nick Claxton, I think the biggest reason is, one, it's a tough matchup going against Phoenix. That's the biggest thing. You know, against Minnesota, he did have a good game. Against New York, he did have a good game. Those are typically not matchups that I've been targeting. And he has been someone that has been going off lately. Okay. But again, this is a more difficult matchup. And maybe just Ben Simmons being back, and I doubt it, but maybe that leads to Nick Claxton getting a little bit less run. Now, Ben Simmons is currently questionable. Got to make sure that he plays. He had a great Wemby performance, if you will. Limited minutes and going off, but maybe there's something there. Maybe Ben Simmons being back actually does hurt Claxton a little bit. Personally, I don't exactly love this one, but if I'm closing out a 6 slip bet, or if I have a 3 slip bet that I want to make a 4 slip bet, because typically speaking, I don't like to run 3 slip bets out on PrizePicks, that is the approach I go with Nick Claxton. Now, before we get into the bet of the day, I do just want to show you guys some middling opportunities here. So I have added in PGA into the regular PrizePicks cheat sheets, but because the PGA Tour, the season, there's a lot of weird nuances. They're playing on 2 different courses this week. So because of that, I took it off of that main sheet. I did that last week as well, where they were playing on 3 different courses. So just want to start with that. And with that being said, like the edge that we are getting, it's tough to really properly give that, because that is based off of the main course that we're going off of. So again, don't really pay too much attention to the edge. What we're looking at really this week is going to be the prop line differences. Right now we have 3. There should never, like in college basketball where the prop line differences that are greater than 2 we're getting a big edge on, there should never be a stroke difference between PrizePicks and Underdog. That is very massive. This is, I don't want to say it's like getting a taco, like a discounted taco. Those are heavily discounted most times, but this is like a 15% discount one way or the other. Okay. And so just real quickly, they are playing on 2 different courses. So like you will see like someone like Max Homa, if you guys are someone that maybe follows golf casually, you might know his name. Like, why is he at 69 strokes and someone like Ricky Fowler is like at 71.5? Well, Ricky's playing on the more difficult course, where Max Homa's playing on the easier course. There are 2 different courses. One plays much easier, but that really doesn't matter for most of you guys. Most of you guys just care, like, where can we make some money? Well, we are seeing decent middling opportunity there. So you know how we have those 3 college basketball props that really stand out? We could definitely pair these ones up with that as well. Hopefully we can hit a middling opportunity. And really, that might be my bet of the day today, is betting these 3 under on PrizePicks, and then on Underdog, it's a little bit different. You have to bet their overs, one of them for their overs, or there's other props like fantasy score. I'll show you guys that here in a second. Like for instance here with Ricky, well, they're not letting me scroll down that far. Whatever, I'll pull it up here. Like you would bet his lower fantasy score, because that's essentially what we're seeing there. In this case, like you would want higher fantasy score. Again, it's weird with golf. And then for like Hideki, you could bet higher for the strokes than having higher strokes is a bad thing. That's why you want to bet less than fans. And then maybe if you wanted to run Wyndham Clark out there as well, which I wouldn't. I think Wyndham Clark's a good play. Maybe you do less than 3.5 birdies or better. I don't want to do that. I'm probably just staying away from Wyndham Clark, but this is how you could go about doing that. Or you could flip it, bet lower for Hideki fantasy score and then higher for Ricky stroke. But again, you could attach this to those college basketball props. And so getting into the bet of the day, I would say like this does seem to be more correct on Underdog today, but we saw on Saturday where the edge seemingly was on PrizePicks there. It ended up being a very good day on Underdog instead. So that's kind of the point of middling, is that when we have a good opportunity like this, by all means attack it. Now we are getting better prop bets on Underdog that I'm going to be running out. I already showed you guys the college basketball props and whatnot, but good middling opportunities here. And I will say, I mentioned that you could run out Ricky Fowler for lower his fantasy score. Actually, don't do that. Ricky Fowler, now that I think about it, is a scorer. So if you're going to do Ricky Fowler, you'd want to bet his higher stroke because he will make some bogeys. He will make maybe a double bogey, but he also is someone that typically makes a bunch of birdies, whereas Hideki is much more of a baseline type of guy. And so this is the way of attacking his higher strokes. And so the flip side of that, what you would do on PrizePicks, is bet the opposite. So we're seeing that we're getting 3 prop line differences here for those 3 guys, PGA wise. Again, it shouldn't be a stroke difference. We were gaining an edge there. You can pair 3 of the same prop bets on PrizePicks, whereas on Underdog, you can't pair the strokes props together. So that's why we have to do it this way. And then, you know, if you wanted to just stop at Joel, because that's a 3 prop line difference, you could. Like, you don't have to attach these last 2 where the data is actually telling us to bet the under on PrizePicks as well. But we are seeing that's a clear edge. And right now, we're just not getting any other good college basketball props. Another thing you could run out there is going to be the Mason Plumlee over fantasy score, and or the Nick Claxton one as well, for less than fantasy score. Now, I don't like the Nick Claxton one. I'm staying away from that. Here is an NBA bet that you guys could run out. I know a lot of the crowd is a big NBA crowd, so I don't want to leave you guys hanging. If LaMelo Ball's out, and let me just confirm that he's a game time decision, I believe he's expected to sit, but guys, that drastically does change who we'd want to be on if he does play. Okay, so a little bit of a concern there, a little bit of a lack of an edge, because I do think Nick Richards really benefits with LaMelo Ball there. He gets a free couple of buckets there because LaMelo Ball is a good pass. So really, the lines would probably shift, but really, if LaMelo Ball is active, we're probably just not playing these. But right now, I think we are getting an edge. We've seen Brandon Miller usage really spike with LaMelo Ball off the court. And then running it back in that game, I want to run out AO there with Zach LaVine and Patrick Williams still up. That should be a good prop bet there. That's going to be all for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to the tools, head on over to 95sports.com. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.